don't be surprised if Pete Carroll has the Raiders in the playoffs this season. He's going to have the Raiders looking like some junkyard dogs out there. Ashton Jeanty is going to be the identity of this offense. Everywhere that Pete Carroll has been, he's always had a dominant rushing attack. That's why they took Ashton Jeanty 6th overall, and he's going to fix the biggest issue, one of many that the Raiders had last year, which was the inability to play complementary football because their rushing attack was dead last in the NFL. Ashton Jeanty is a future Hall of Fame back. He has elite vision, elite contact balance, everything that you look for in an elite running back, Ashton Jeanty possesses. And when the Seattle Seahawks had that running game going with Geno Smith, that's when he played his best football, which is how Geno Smith is going to end up giving the Raiders top 12 quarterback play this year. When Pete Carroll was able to resurrect Geno Smith's career, it was not just because Geno Smith was really good that season and he just called lightning in a bottle, but because he had the ground game that helped make life easier for him. Because Geno Smith is one of the best play action passers in the National Football League. That's why he's so great at generating a bunch of explosive plays downfield. The Raiders' second biggest issue on offense outside of their inability to run the football at all was that they didn't generate a lot of explosive plays. With Geno Smith, you're getting a guy that last season was number one in explosive pass rate. This guy is a big play machine. Since the last 3 years when Geno Smith took over as the Seahawks starting quarterback, he has led the NFL in big play touchdowns that have went for over 20 yards or more. And with him throwing the Brock Bowers, the best tight end in the game, you got Jacoby Myers, Jack Bash, and big play Trey Tucker at receiver. Geno Smith has more than enough to play at a high enough level for the Raiders to get to the playoffs this year. And the Raiders defense, nobody's talking about how good their defensive line is going to be this year. This is the most expensive defensive line in the NFL walking into this season. We know how good Maxx Crosby is. We know how much of a dog Christian Wilkins is when he's fully healthy. But you also have Malcolm Koonce, who's coming back from an injury, who had a breakout campaign in 2023 with 8 sacks. There is a lot of talent on this Raiders front seven that's going to be able to make up for the limitations that they may have at cornerback and that safety this year. And Pete Carroll, with the amount of experience that he has coaching, this is going to be a way better coached team, which makes this a team that you don't want to get into a dogfight with late in the fourth quarter. There were 4 one-score games that the Raiders lost last year that they easily could have won if they had better coaching, like when they had that botch snap in that Black Friday loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. You had special teams mishaps that hurt this team as well. Pete Carroll is going to have this team looking miles better just because of him becoming the head coach, being able to fix things that have nothing to do with talent. Antonio Pierce was a first-time head coach who was learning on the job, and you could obviously tell that with how this team in certain situations would just beat themselves with mistakes that make you throw your hands up and say, how the hell does that happen? Pete Carroll is going to have the Raiders having better awareness in big situations when it comes to having a better knack for when to go for it on 4th down, when to just concede and take the 3 points, which was a huge issue that Antonio Pierce had. He just didn't have a good feel for the game. He didn't have a good understanding of when to be aggressive, when to be conservative. He was all over the place. Pete Carroll fixes a lot of the problems that the Raiders had last season, not pertaining to the level of talent that they had on the field. The Broncos and the Chargers both made it to the postseason last year. despite not being expected to before the season started because their rosters didn't look like playoff teams, but they were able to overachieve because they had great coaching. The Raiders could have the same thing happen to them this season that their two divisional opponents had happen last year. When you get a good coach, it changes a lot of things for you that talent doesn't necessarily always fix. You can have a talented team and still underachieve if you don't have a coach that can put the great players in position to make plays. Pete Carroll, I believe that he can have the Raiders competing for the 7th or 6th seed in the AFC. But my rec prediction for the Raiders overall, I got them anywhere between 8 to 10 wins. This is not a team that you can sleep on just because they may not have the most talented roster on paper. They're going to win a few games that you're going to be shocked they even had a chance at winning it all. But with the Junkyard Dog mentality that Pete Carroll is going to bring to this franchise, it's going to have them in games that shouldn't be close. And anytime you're able to make a game close, despite being at a talent disadvantage, you got a chance to win, especially when you have capable quarterback play with a supporting cast that's good enough for Geno Smith to put up good numbers with. And this is an offensive line that should look a lot better this year than what it did last year. And Geno Smith, he had some up and downs last season in Seattle, but it was more due to the limitations that he had to overcome. The ground game was non-existent. The offensive line was an abomination. And they just said, hey, Geno, we need you to put everything on your shoulders and carry us to wins. And Geno Smith isn't that kind of quarterback. You have to somewhat give him a little bit of some help. And he has that with Pete Carroll. And he has that with Chip Kelly calling the plays, with the talent that he has around him. The Seahawks had JSN, but they didn't have a Brock Bowers. Jack Bech could be one of the best rookie wide receivers in the league this year. He got a similar season to what Malcolm Koonce had last year with the Chargers. There is a lot to like about the Raiders going into this season. And if everything goes right for this team, Pete Carroll can have this squad in the playoffs. And this definitely could be a team that, like the last couple of years when you had the Washington Commanders, you had the Jaguars year one under Doug Peterson make it to the playoffs, they can be that sleeper team that they hire a new head coach, and that's what helps them make it to the playoffs. You don't always need a stacked team to be a playoff team. Sometimes all you need is just competent coaching with some stable quarterback play, an Ashton Jeanty talent at running back, and boom, that's what gets you and to the dance in January.